Hello, my name is Brian Brooks, and I am one of the programmers of SeriesFest, and it is my absolute delight to have a date with the creators of Recipe for Love, Marian Pulowski and Georgia Humphreys. Say hello to your
Hi.
virtual friends. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, I
Hello.
love that. Great. So going on that theme, we'll dive in. So tell me about what was the recipe for how this pilot came about, and how did you two come together? You definitely combined two behemoths of non-scripted television, dating and food, but don't usually see them in the same scenario. So tell me about the genesis of that and how you both came to collaborate together.
Marion, do you want to take this one or should I? Okay. Well, I mean, you don't see them very often in dating shows or in unscripted, but you do see them in real life. You often go out for a meal on a date. So I suppose that was the basis for it, for the genesis of the idea. But also, I mean, Marion and I both wanted a kind of antidote to the really loud, crazy, a little bit obnoxious dating shows that we saw out there, that people were kind of they were mean. You know, they have a really mean-spirited kind of vibe to them. And we wanted something that was going to make us feel happy and that we were really rooting for someone's happiness on our show. So yeah, that was the kind of the birth of it, as it were.
Yeah. And then maybe Marian, you can talk about how you guys both came together to collaborate, and how did that come about?
Well, Georgia and I have a company called Corner Table Productions based in Adelaide in South Australia. And we met each other, it must be 8 or 9 years ago now, because Georgia ran a cafe in a far-flung suburb of Adelaide, where I used to go to write. I mean, actually, I would go to not to write. And over a couple of years, I thought to myself, you know, that girl would be a great producer. And so I kind of hassled her a little bit. And her sister, who happens to be the host of Recipe for Love, actually, was an actor. And I just thought, oh, let's make some short films together and see if, you know, this marriage could work. And it did. And then eventually Georgia sold the cafe and became a full-time producer, and then joined my company. And now we're partners.
Fantastic. I want to ask, well, Georgia, you were talking about how you wanted, you wanted to stay away from the sort of nastiness that often, typically can, is a part of a series.
Yeah.
So, but this also unique because, this is also, these, at least in the first episode, these are folks who are of a certain age. I mean, they're not like in their early 20s and completely stereotypically beautiful, I suppose you could say. So maybe talk about that. I mean, talk about, what else you were like seeing as you were like developing like what you wanted this show to be, and that particularly. Either of you.
Well, no, I was just about to say every contestant is over the age of 50 in the series, and we just felt that there was that age group over the age of 50 in a kind of digital world didn't have the same opportunities for dating and meeting people that young people have. I mean, they're just not into swipey lefty righty, as one of the contestants says. They're intimidated by it. And so we thought it'd be really nice to kind of pull back to the original idea of dating, in its kind of simplistic or most simple form, I guess. And where people spoke to each other face to face, and met over a plate of food. And that was normal. That was deemed very normal. So that's how we kind of decided to develop it, that specifically for people over the age of 50, or as some people like to say, people of a certain age.
And specifically, how did you find then Kathy and Milton and Darren?
We did a huge, we did a call out, a casting call out, and really through Facebook, really. And we just kind of advertised as much as we could on Facebook for people to tell their friends or their family or their parents, grandparents. And we had quite a few applicants. I mean,
Probably 100.
Some of them were, probably about 100, And we, apart from the pilot, we made another 5 episodes. So there are 3 contestants on every episode, and so we had 18 in total. I mean, we wouldn't, if we had to only make 1 episode, we wouldn't have been able to choose 3 people. I mean, they're all like fabulous. So kind of brave and like just willing to have a go and talk about themselves and their lives and what's happened to them. Yeah, they're incredible.
Wow.
I think the tricky thing was, I think at the time, Australia has been experiencing quite a different COVID from the rest of the world, in that it only takes 1 or 2 cases here for the states to completely lock down. They will just shut borders, and everybody has to isolate. You have to check in wherever you go. It's and in the main, everybody is very, what's the word, Georgia? Compliant, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And during the time that we made this, there had been an outbreak in actually there were little
Melbourne.
Outbreaks going on in Melbourne and in Sydney, and so nobody could travel in or out of South Australia. So our casting pool came purely from South Australia, and Maria, who hosts the show, I think made it over the border with 24 hours to go.
Wow.
So it was, and the set had to have a COVID officer. It was incredibly strict COVID protocols, and it was just kind of the start of it. Now we all kind of are a bit more used to it and take it in our stride. But then it was very in Australia very stressful, and so the contestants were a little bit stressed as well, actually.
Well,
in a way, it worked in our favour that everyone was from South Australia, because it actually gave everyone the opportunity to, if there was a connection, for them to continue to see each other, as opposed to a lot of other dating shows where they're from the whole country, like they're from thousands of kilometres away from each other. So after the show ends, they've got to make a decision about who, where do they live, or if they continue to date, or if it's long distance. So in a way, this was quite convenient. Yeah. I mean, that sounds terrible.
A bit more proximity.
Convenient, but
right.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I found also just refreshing in seeing this first episode was just how natural the 3 of them were. I mean, I think after, having years and years of watching reality television, you can kind of get a sense of what maybe is staged by the producers, or scenarios that are carefully controlled and crafted and manipulated a little bit. But I don't know, I wasn't there when you filmed it, but at least the sense I got was that these people were very natural with each other and having natural conversation, and it just seemed very realistic in this reality. Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things that Georgia and I were really, really determined to do, that we were going to have a kind of completely authentic experience in as much as we could in terms of the making of the show. So normally, and Georgia has worked on other shows, reality shows where producers might say, now do that again, but with this, I mean, we never, ever reset, not once. The only time we would perhaps step in, not even step in, we'd just kind of call out from the camera, would be to say, and in general, it was men, I have to say, would be to say, perhaps you'd like to ask, Kathy, a question. It was purely just to kind of make them continue speaking about, at the date. That I can't remember, Georgia, if we, we told them, feel free to look at cameras. It's absolutely fine to look at the camera. You can acknowledge us if you want to. You can acknowledge the fact that the food is set up. It doesn't matter. So we just kind of said to them, you just be and do whoever you are and whatever you want. Right. And you will see from the show that the set is deconstructed, so you can see the cameras and you can see the zones on the sound stage. So at the studio, sorry. Would you agree with that, Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, Marion and I kind of made a point of knowing our contestants very well. We had built a relationship, certainly with the featured single especially, before we actually filmed. And I mean, I don't mean a relationship like we're manipulating things about their lives and then getting them to say it on camera, but we certainly, they're in our phones, but we text them, or we text them about question about this, or how they felt about that. I mean, we had a rapport with them, I think, and they trust us and continue to trust us, I think. So I think that makes a huge difference in getting some authentic stories out of people. Yeah.
And Marion, that was actually, you anticipated my next question, because I was going to ask about the set. So that makes sense, because it was like sort of had this deconstructed feel, but then yet the immediate surroundings sort of fit the scenario, like when they were eating and so forth. And I also found that very interesting and also refreshing. So I'm going to pivot now toward the end, when the final two, they're writing each other a letter, which I also found very interesting. And and actually the tension was rising, because I was like, oh my God, what if like one of them says yes and the other one says no?
I know.
Ouch, that was gonna hurt. I mean, but
I mean,
when people see this, they're gonna have already seen the first episode, and obviously we know it works out, but I mean, wow. But yeah.
We were kind of originally the idea to develop, for them to write to each other was purely kind of a nod to them being non-digital animals and not digital natives, and just the idea that this is what people used to do, right? But then on the actual day when they were writing the letters, and then they exchange letters and read them out to each other, I mean, Georgia and I couldn't believe how nervous we were for them. It was terrible, because in the moment we just thought, oh my God, because we didn't read the letters once they were sealed. There was none of that. So they wrote the letters. Nobody knew what they said except themselves. And then they get thrown under that kind of eerie, kind of dark spotlight where they're kind of floating in it.
Right.
And exchange those letters and read them out loud. And I mean, that was very funny on the day, because we were like, oh my God, please be nice. Please don't say anything that's going to be horrible to the other person. But yeah, turns out people over 50 are very kind.
Yeah.
And willing to give someone a go, even if they've been awkward on a date or things haven't,
Yes,
it's been a really kind of tense and pressurized setting. They're still kind of just really willing to just have a go, just in case. You never know. Right. They're hopeful, always hopeful.
And I think I have to ask the obvious question, is if there's an update on the two of them that you guys can share. If there's an update on the two of them since you've done the recording.
Kathy messaged us last night, Georgia. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. I didn't read the message, but I know, she did.
Yeah. And we have seen Darren since. Now I've said what happens anyway.
It's okay. They're going to watch. They would have watched the episode after.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, the other thing that came out of this was that often the people cooking in the kitchen became good friends, which was kind of unexpected and adorable. So the people competing against each other for the date often created relationships that seem to have lasted, friendship relationships, So we know that Milton and Darren have gone out on a few, bro dates. And
seemed like they got along well. Yeah.
Yeah, they got along well. Yeah. And Kathy and Darren, I don't know, Georgia, if they
did.
Because they
they went on a date actually straight after filming. I mean, they went for a drink right after we stopped filming that
but
evening.
They've still, but they still contact
they're
each other.
Definitely still in.
They're in contact. Okay.
In touch still.
All right. Well, good. The best of luck to all three of them, because they were all so lovely people, and also best of luck to you both, Kathy Milton, of course, the woman on the thing, Marion Pulowski and Georgia Humphreys, the co-creators of Recipe for Love. Congratulations on that, and I can't wait hopefully to see more episodes. I would be really curious to see what happens if these other letters get read and how that all plays out. So it must be interesting. And thanks for being a part of SeriesFest. And
it's a pleasure and an honor. We're thrilled to be a part of it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Of course. Fantastic. Well, we're so happy to have you. So thank you very much and thank you for making Recipe for Love.
Our pleasure.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.